What's up guys, it's Spartacus here, and before the commentary begins, I want you all to know that I did record this video prior to a statement being released by the Battlefield developers for the community's feedback on the map sizes within the game, and the only reason why I didn't get this video out before the statement was released is because I've been dealing with some weird editing issues on trying to complete this video, and so in that meantime of me trying to figure this stuff out, I guess Battlefield developers have already released a response to our concerns on the map sizes in the game, which is great. And as you can see on screen, what they said regarding the map sizes, they said that there is a priority in the balance for all the maps and a variety of map types for future seasons. And it does look like they are going to continue monitoring existing maps and modes for targeted adjustments, which is something they've already planned to do during their winter offensive, which is great to hear. And apparently they're also going to try and learn from community creations within Portal, which is also a fantastic thing to hear from them as well. So it's great to see that they've already responded to the concerns here, but I still think the discussion points I have in this video are important to talk about, and I think they can strike some interesting conversations within the Battlefield community. So I do hope you guys enjoy the remainder of the video. Like I said, this was recorded prior to this statement coming out, so there might be some things I say later on that kind of contradict on what's already been said by the Battlefield developers. But again, I think the discussion points I make in this video are interesting, and I hope you guys do listen to everything I have to say and actually comment down below on what you guys actually think regarding the map sizes in the game and what you think of this response from the developers. So without further ado, I hope you guys enjoy the remainder of the video. What's up guys, it's Spartacus here, and one thing that's been on my mind since I started playing Battlefield 6's multiplayer is how small the maps feel compared to the older Battlefield games. And it's important for me to mention here at the start of the video that I have not played a Battlefield game since Battlefield 1. So I skipped out entirely on Battlefield 5 and I skipped out entirely on Battlefield 2042, and so it's been quite a long time since I've put some time into a Battlefield game. And so now that I'm actually going back and playing Battlefield, I couldn't help but think since the Battlefield 6 beta that the maps we have available at the beta and even here at launch do feel relatively small than what I remembered playing back in Battlefield 4 and maybe even in Battlefield 1. And so I really wanted to kind of dive deeper into like what the reasoning could be on why I think the maps feel small here within Battlefield 6. And I know I'm not the only one feeling like this as well. This has definitely been a topic of major discussion within the Battlefield community since the beta dropped. And so I know I'm a little bit late to the party in terms of starting this conversation, but it is something I still want to talk about nonetheless. The first thing I want to show you guys is this graphic I found over on Twitter, which was posted by Moydog, and even though I don't know who Moydog is, it seems like he has enough followers and credibility to, I guess, say that this graphic is an honest representation of the scaling for all the maps that we've seen within prior Battlefield games. And so by just going off of this graphic alone, you can see in the very center we have the Battlefield 6 maps, and you could see that like more than half of them are fairly tiny compared to the surrounding maps that we see from the other Battlefield games, like Battlefield 2042, Battlefield 3, Battlefield 4. Those three games have much larger scale maps. Like when you compare the biggest map that we see within Battlefield 6, which is apparently Operation Firestorm, by the way, which I guess is not a really good sign considering Operation Firestorm is a remade map. It's been in the franchise for quite some time. And so if that's the biggest map in the game, then I can definitely see why there's a concern about the map size being an issue here within Battlefield 6. And one thing that I think is important to note that I think a lot of people might just kind of ignore when looking at this graphic is that yes, we do have quite small maps here within Battlefield 6, but if you look at some of the maps within Battlefield 3, Battlefield 1, and even Battlefield 4, there are some small maps in there as well that are just as big as the Battlefield 6 maps, and some of them might even be smaller. And so I don't think it's necessarily fair to say that all the other Battlefield games only had large maps, because that is simply simply not true. But one thing I think that is also important to note, like you look at a game like Battlefield 4 and you look at a map like Parasol Storm, or Parasol Storm, that is like a Navy-based like map, right? It's a map meant to be played on the water, basically in a storm, and the only ground is the island that you can get onto. And I guess there's multiple islands on the map, but the point being is that a lot of the map is water. And so I think it's pretty easy for the developers to make a map like Parasol Storm where a lot of the surface area is just water and there's not as much land that you can really go on, I suppose. But it is a fairly unique map in that regard, but I think it's worth pointing out that even though it looks pretty large on this graphic, you got to remember it is a water-based map and there is a lot of water filling up that map rather than land. However, I do want to emphasize that yes, Battlefield 6 does have small-scaled maps compared to what we've seen in previous Battlefield games. So this feeling that I have, as well as everyone else out there, that these maps don't seem to be very large when we play Battlefield 6 is technically true. The majority of these maps are actually pretty small in scale. And we can see that Operation Firestorm and Myrick Valley are pretty much the biggest maps in terms of surface area. And if those are really the two biggest maps that we have with Battlefield 6 currently, then we do have a map size issue in this game, because Operation Firestorm was never considered to be the biggest map in a Battlefield game. There's always been plenty of other maps that are bigger, and you can even see with them on the graphic that there are plenty of maps that are bigger than Operation Firestorm. And so I don't really know what the plan is for the future of this game in terms of how they are going to design their maps. Now, it does seem like the developers are taking community feedback pretty strongly in this game and actually trying to take that feedback and really represent it with future updates. So it is very possible within future updates to Battlefield 6 and future seasons that we are going to get maps that are just as big as Operation Firestorm, if not bigger, and maybe it is something they already have planned under their sleeves, but for some reason, you know, they're just not announcing it, right? Because, I mean, why would they? They don't want to spoil any of the fun that they have for future seasons. So we don't know what their plans are going to be for future seasons, but in a weird way, it does seem like Battlefield 6 is pushing this close quarters combat agenda. And I feel like there's something there that I just cannot explain. And I wish I could figure out what it is, because then I would definitely bring it up in this video. But for some reason, Battlefield 6 does feel like it's trying to turn into Call of Duty in a way. And it's just, I don't really know how to explain it fully. Part of it has to do with some of the marketing on advertising Battlefield 6. It seems like a lot of the promotion for Battlefield 6 that you see on like TV commercials is pretty much on par with how you see Call of Duty advertise themselves and market themselves. And so, I don't know what it is, but there's something about Battlefield 6 that does seem like it is trying to cater to the close quarters combat style of gameplay. And I don't know how many of you are aware of this, but there's only 2 maps in Battlefield 6 that are strictly close quarters that have no vehicles on them, those maps being Empire State and Saints Quarter. But there are 2 other maps in the game that do have ground vehicles, but they don't have air vehicles, and those maps are Siege of Cairo and Iberian Offensive. So even though those 2 maps have ground vehicles, they still classify them as close quarter maps. And so right there is 4 maps that are essentially close quarters, right? And that's 4 out of the 6 maps. And so that could be part of why many of us feel like the maps have a small scale to them, because 40% of these maps are supposed to be like small, essentially. So that means the other 6 maps do have air vehicles and have other ground vehicles as well. But the one thing I'll bring up about air vehicles is that even though I haven't had too much experience trying to fly a jet or using a helicopter in this game, I have noticed that flying a jet can be quite difficult on certain maps. Liberation Peak, I think, is a prime example of this, because for some reason, when you're playing Liberation Peak and you spawn into a jet, you're already in the sky. sky. So you're not taking off on a runway like you are on Operation Firestorm. As soon as you spawn in that jet, you are already in the sky. And so you are going straight into the battlefield already right off the bat as soon as you're in that jet. And one thing I've noticed flying jets on that map is that not only is it hard to stay alive in the jet because there's enough anti-air support on the ground to really take you out quickly, but not only that, when you're flying around the map and you need to do a sweep to look over the battlefield again, that you have to really time it correctly because it seems like the out of bounds area for the jet on Liberation Peak doesn't seem to be quite that wide enough. And so it seems to be like a little bit claustrophobic in a way when you're flying jets in this game. And I'm not really sure why that's the case because I remember playing Battlefield 4 and Battlefield 3 and I just felt like I could fly forever away from the battlefield to like move around in my jet. I don't know. That's what I remember feeling like playing those games, and I just don't really feel I have that opportunity here within these maps. So I think that also just adds on to the map scaling and why they feel small is especially when you're in a jet and you're trying to move around and you're having a hard time doing that because you keep finding yourself going out of bounds. And so I think that just adds to the scaling issue that we have here within Battlefield 6. And the last thing I will talk about in this video is the Gauntlet mode. And the reason why I want to talk about this is because earlier in this video, I mentioned that I have a hard time explaining like why I feel like Battlefield 6 is trying to push this close quarters combat style of gameplay onto us. And I feel like Gauntlet has almost proved my point of that feeling because that's exactly what Gauntlet is. It doesn't play anything like a traditional battle royale. It is more of like, I guess, it is kind of a battle royale because, you know, the bottom squads are being eliminated and you have to be the last squad standing up until the final mission. But it is obviously different because, you know, you're essentially playing multiplayer matches, what it feels like. It feels like you and your squad are playing essentially these close quarter combat style multiplayer like maps and then trying to stay on top as like one of the top squads until you can finally be the last one standing. And I haven't played too much Gauntlet. I do find it to be quite fun, but it was very clear to me that this mode is meant to be close quarters, and it's very clear that's what this is supposed to be. And I do find it quite interesting that this is launched with the Battle Royale. And so when this mode released and when I finally played it and started to understand like what it's supposed to be, that's when it kind of proved to me that there is this close quarters combat type of style being pushed onto us. And I don't know if I necessarily like that. It's not that I don't think Battlefield should have some sort of close quarters combat in the game. It's just that when I go to play Battlefield, I'm playing Conquest. I am playing the large scale maps and modes because that is what made Battlefield Battlefield to me, is having all those vehicles, having total destruction on all of the buildings that you come across. Like, that is what makes Battlefield. And so if there really is this agenda being pushed, I don't know if I should call it agenda. I don't really know. I can't think of the proper word, to be honest with you guys, but I do feel like there is something being pushed onto the player base to really design the game to be more close quarters combat style. And Gauntlet definitely proves that to me anyway. So I'm not sure how you guys feel about that, but I think because of this close quarters combat gameplay being pushed onto us, could be a big reason why we are seeing the map scaling being this small in the game. And I think that is something that's definitely worth noting and ending off here for this conversation. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you guys stuck through the entire video, and I hope you enjoyed the conversation I brought when it came to the map sizes here and why I think the maps could be small in this game due to the close quarters gameplay being pushed onto the player base. But again, that's just kind of a theory that I have, a little bit of a tinfoil hat idea that I've just been kind of circulating in my head for the past week or so. I figured I might as well just go ahead and make this video and get it all out there. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this. Leave a like if you did. Subscribe to the channel if you're brand new and want to watch more Battlefield 6 videos. And with that being said, I shall catch you guys later.